And we're back. Hey everybody, it's the end of the year. We're approaching the new year in just a few days, and I thought it would be a good time to just take a break from our normal product reviews and testing recipes and other emergency food uses, and talk about what we likely are facing this coming year. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you know that I don't do shock thumbnails, and not every video that we do has some type of imminent doom type title to it. Today we're going to talk about what we can expect in 2022. This is not my attempt at providing some forecast or predictions or anything like that. We're just going to talk about a few things that I think are very likely based on what we're experiencing now and some patterns and behaviors and divisive politics and all kinds of things that are going on. And I think it's important for us to stop and do this just by way of better preparing you for what's ahead. So what can we expect in 2022? I believe that we can expect a lower standard, a lower quality of lifestyle from what we're used to. Electronic components, manufactured goods, tools and machinery, luxury and accessory items and necessity items, food products, all of these things have been in shortages over the last few months. There doesn't seem to be anybody that can point to an exact reason why. I've heard a lot of different theories about why there's ships sitting out in the port stacked up with cargo containers on them, not moving or unloading. Some people point to some type of labor issues at the docks. Other people talk about the trucking regulations. The fact that we're still experiencing this far down the road tells me that there's something else going on. Frankly, I don't trust the political climate that we're experiencing today. I don't want to get off on conspiracy theories. It's not what we do here on this channel. However, I do believe that there's something afoot that we just can't put our finger on. I've never seen a problem that is impacting the world in such a significant way that seems to have no solution or anybody that can even identify the problem. So I think that this is going to be something that we're going to see and continue in 2022. Very likely that it could get worse. Some of the concerns are it's not just the luxury items or additional products that we like to purchase that's the problem here. There are food shortages. There are locations that are experiencing medicine shortages and not being able to get them because of this issue that we're talking about. Food banks and other relief organizations are now talking about having difficulty getting products. If I was to make a list of things that we think are in short supply, that would be a narrow view of this problem. Think about raw chemicals as an example. Think about other products that are made from raw chemicals. An example would be maybe paint, things like that. So this problem, I think, will be far reaching in 2022, or at least expanding from what we've been experiencing so far. Auto manufacturers are having difficulty putting vehicles on lots due to a shortage of electronic components, computer chips, things like that. As a side note, that also caused prices to climb and takes your bargaining position off the table. When supply and demand get out of balance, like this is causing, you're just fortunate to find something sometimes that you want to buy and forget about, bargaining on a price. Additionally, used car sales skyrocketed, and that was something that surprised a lot of people. Again, think about the overall picture here, and think about people that rely on buying decent used cars to drive, and that's what they can afford to do. A lot of those people were frankly priced out of being able to get a decent car. And some of the price increases on these things were shocking to me because people just couldn't get the new cars that they wanted. So a good used car or something with low mileage, a lease return or something like that became gold. Shortages of raw food products we're seeing this year by way of some of the emergency food manufacturers even. We'll just use those as an example. If you're watching this video, you're likely familiar with some of the companies like Augustin Farms, Mountain House, and others. Augustin Farms, as many people know, had to stop production this year. The issue was them getting raw food products to turn into freeze-dried foods and emergency preparedness products that they're in business to sell. We've all been to the store shelves and seen spotty holes in inventories. There is this peculiar issue of certain holes on the shelf and some products being difficult to get. Again, you can call that a first world problem, but where are we heading? Where is this going? And that's the concern we have as we go into 2022. I'm sure a lot of you, as you were doing your Christmas shopping this year, noticed a very big difference in just the availability of things that you would like to buy, the variety of things that you would like to maybe shop for. But I think you have to look at this from the financial impact as well on businesses and manufacturers and shipping and everybody involved in the retail process. Economically, this certainly can grow to be a much bigger problem. We have a very questionable leadership, if you can even call it that, at the helm of this country right now, and I see the same tumult spreading all across the globe in other nations. It seems like things are just becoming more unraveled everywhere around the globe. And if we continue on the same course, you can expect the purchasing power of your money to continue falling in 2022. There's absolutely no question that we've experienced inflation with product shortages and other issues that are just frankly costing people more money to live, taking a bigger bite out of your budget while your taxes are going up, fuel and food, and everything becoming more of a financial burden. I did a video about inflation 6-7 months ago, and of course there were armchair quarterbacks in the comment section after we did that video talking about how I was wrong about inflation is good and all these economic class models of money. The problem that I have with a lot of those comments is you're assuming that everything is staying constant on your end as the inflation occurs. But frankly, that doesn't happen very often, at least down here in middle class or lower living. If you've got more money than you can possibly spend or need, then possibly it doesn't impact you that way. But for most folks, when inflation is taking off and food prices are going up, fuel prices are going up, everything that heating, energy, just on and on, car repair and consumable items, when all that stuff is going up and wages are not, many businesses cannot sustain in periods of time like this. They start laying people off or shuttering their doors. A lot of people are left in a situation where their monthly budget has a bigger chunk taken out of it during inflationary periods like we're experiencing now. Let me just give you a couple of numbers to kind of point out what I'm talking about. In 2021, food costs went up almost 7% across the board. Fuel prices up 58%, and both are still climbing. There doesn't seem to be any slowing in that trend at all. So where will that go in 2022? I think we can certainly expect and prepare for, be on the lookout for, and brace yourself for food prices, fuel prices, and all of these things to continue to rise to a pocket felt or possibly debilitating level for some people. Inflation is currently at a 39-year high and continuing to get worse. One of the side effects of this that we can expect to see in 2022 will be the Federal Reserve raising interest rates to try to curb or slow this inflation process. The problem with that is there can also be side effects or other things impacted by them doing that. The impact and effects on real estate, housing, and the building sector will be directly felt by that. When you raise interest rates up, many buyers now are no longer qualified or able to purchase homes that are at extremely inflated prices right now. So we've got a situation where buyers will no longer be able to afford the house payment. That'll take a lot of people out of the market. That creates a situation where the market slows down, values start to drop, and furthermore, when that decline of value starts happening, we end up with a lot of people that are sitting in homes that they bought for, let's say, $400,000 that are now worth $225,000, and they just walk away from them. If you don't believe that, just look back to the mid-2000s, around 2007, 2008, I believe it was, after we experienced this situation last time. We had a absolute flood on the market of inventory of homes that were foreclosures. People just walked because they were upside down on the value. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but frankly, a lot of people did that. So now you're left with a situation where we could possibly be seeing building supplies, lumber, steel, etc. All the manufacturing and all the goods that are supplied for all of that will be directly impacted, and that'll further be a blow to our economy. When we were in this situation last time, we were stuck with a hard choice. Do we bail out the banks and the lending institutions that are now sitting on a bunch of bad debt, and there was, a glut of houses sitting out there empty? Well, guess who picked up the tab on that? The taxpayer did. What are we going to do this time around if we create another situation like that in 2022? Who's going to bail us out now? With all of the economic impact of us doing that from the last housing crash and economic crash that I don't think we've ever fully recovered from yet, and then we entered into the pandemic and stimulus, and it just goes on and on and on. Folks, we just can't afford to keep handing out money and printing it out and trying to bail out and stimulus and on it goes. So where are we going to be this time around in a situation like that? And that's something that I think people should be watching and paying attention to very closely this coming year. In 2020, we entered into this situation that nobody saw coming with the pandemic. And that went through the year, right into 2021, through 2021, and I think we can all see that this isn't stopping or slowing down anytime soon. I'm not here to debate the validity of the illness, the virus. I'm not here to debate people's political positions on it. In my opinion, quite frankly, we've come to a point where, because of divisive politics, fear, anxiety, and frustration, we don't seem to be able to have a conversation about this situation at all anymore. I think that we need to look at problems squarely, evaluate them for what they are, and try to come up with some solutions, even if there is a debate about things. There's no question in my mind that there is a lot of misinformation being pumped out to us daily on the topic, and I think a lot of other people feel that way. And so that's causing a climate of distrust, and which is further exasperating this issue, in my opinion. I know a lot of people that work in the medical industry on the front lines, and I can tell you that a lot of them are very exhausted. I speak to those people on a routine basis, and that's, if you want to really find out what's going on with something, talk to the people on the front lines. Talk to the troops that are on the ground out there where they're dealing with this thing. We're not going to learn much by listening to more, noise coming from whatever news. I think that's going to be something we can expect to continue seeing in 2022. Additionally, a lot of people across the globe are starting to stand up to some of these unbelievable lockdown measures and rights violations and other things that we see happening. Some of these things almost just look a little bit too similar to me to Europe in the 1940s and late 30s. And I think that's very concerning. So I think we're going to see more of a tumultuous situation over this whole thing as we go into 2022. There's no secret that we're seeing a lot of crazy things going on these days by way of mass looting and these mobs that are out hitting stores and burglarizing them, thefts, catalytic converter thefts, home invasions, home burglaries, on and on the list goes. We can certainly expect to see this trend continue and get worse into 2022. When our lawmakers and politicians decriminalize and take away the consequences for people committing thefts and doing these types of things they're doing, it doesn't take a genius to understand that why we're seeing this thing accelerate and become a bigger and bigger problem by the day. But having worked in the law enforcement profession, I can tell you that in my state, they passed laws, Prop 47, Prop 57, AB 109 certainly didn't help. those propositions basically decriminalized a lot of nonviolent offenses and or property crimes. But the problem is now we're dealing with it at such a level that it's become a wildfire that's out of control. Commercial burglaries, that used to be a burglary in the daytime if you entered into a store or a business with the intent to commit a theft or other felony, has been changed to a shoplifting charge now. The difference between a misdemeanor and a felony on theft, the value of that was raised from $400 to $950. What's happening is good, hard-working people that are just trying to survive, raise a family, and live a decent life are being victimized. And we can certainly expect to see that continue in 2022. On the heels of that, a lot of our government whiz-bang leaders out there feel that it's up to them to tell you when and how you can defend yourself, and furthermore, in many states, they're trying to take away your rights and ability to own a weapon. That's something that I think everybody should be very concerned about. All of these issues that we're talking about today, some of the crazy lockdown things happening in Australia and places like that, which, by the way, you know, they had a gun buyback some years ago, and many people are unarmed there now, and you see what governments feel comfortable doing, you know, once they've got you in that position. On that note, I was listening to an interview not long ago of a man in Venezuela. When asked why the men in that nation weren't rising up to take over this dictator, Nicolas Maduro, that the socialist dictator that now has them in a situation where they have no food, water, medicine, they're just living in complete squalor. And he said, this man's made this statement, and I haven't forgot it, and he said, the biggest mistake that we made was letting them take our guns away from us, you know, a few years ago, whatever the time frame was. Now they're powerless to do anything against a evil dictator that has armed military. These people are at the other end of the gun of the people ruling their lives, and they have no ability to fight back or do anything about it. Defunding the police. Recently, in the state that I live in, our governor was whining in a press release about the fact that his personal business had been broke into 3 times or more, at least at the time of that press release. And the mayor of the city that they all live in was really trying to, come out with a let's crack down and get tough on this thing, although, again, there was no solutions or answers to it until you change those laws that I just talked about a while ago. In 2022, we can expect this to continue, but we can also expect to see the additional problem of our law enforcement officers that are quitting and just getting out of the job and the profession. And additionally, law enforcement agencies everywhere are having a very large problem with getting people to come on and take the job. I remember back when I started trying to get into the profession back in the mid to early 90s, there might be 5 openings at a local agency, and there would be 1,500 or more people that would show up to take the written test. Now you see agencies all over the nation offering hiring bonuses, you know, please apply here, we'll give you 20 grand, you know, all this kind of stuff, and it's bewildering to me. But this is the climate that we've created. And regardless of how you feel about that situation politically, you will absolutely feel it when you're the one screaming for help, calling 911, and there's just nobody to come and take your call. In 2022, I would strongly suggest making a plan and having a plan on how you're going to defend yourself and protect you and your family. We can expect the war on the right to bear arms to continue in 2022. I talked about this a little bit earlier, and certainly will heat up. One state governor right now is trying to use the model that Texas used, the playbook that Texas used on the recent abortion reform bill that they passed, and applied that now to gun control measures in his state. Basically, they were able to circumvent the courts being involved in a state decision that they were passing, in short. And this governor wants to do that with gun control now too, and just eliminate the Supreme Court from being able to intervene in his lockdown on your Second Amendment rights. Pay attention to this stuff, folks. That will set a precedent, I'm sure, not just in this crazy state, but in a lot of other states as well. Product availability, economy, your investment accounts, your tax rates, food and other necessary items, all of these things are going to become a new world, a changed environment as we enter into 2022 and throughout the year. What do we do to prepare for this? You might be asking. Not to overly generalize the answer, but quite frankly, do the things that we talk about on preparedness channels like this all the time. We constantly talk about ways for you to be able to endure a burp or a disruption in the norm in your family and in your household. All the emergency food and all these kinds of things that are often talked about in preparedness circle, those things have a limited usefulness to you. They're designed to get you through a few days, a couple of weeks, maybe months of some type of disruption. But I think our world has changed, and I think in 2022 you need to step back and reevaluate your preparedness plan and how you look at emergency preparedness. I believe it's time to start seriously considering doing some of the things that we've covered on this channel. You know, when you put out a gardening video or something like that, it's typically not of much interest to people that are looking for prepper type issues. But I would submit to you, learning to grow, learning to preserve, learning to put food up like the pioneers did, like our grandparents and great-grandparents did, like family members that you may have known that lived through the Depression. This is very important for us to learn how to live that lifestyle again. Your freeze-dried food, and by the way, you'd be surprised how much of that stuff I've thrown out. If you just have some emergency food kit and you think you're good to go, I wouldn't rely on that for too much. I would have some food based on things that we've talked about in this channel, our canned food pantry. We certainly have some freeze-dried food, but we also talk about having other staples and dried goods around. We constantly here put out practice videos of cooking these things in some type of alternative method. All of this is important to do. We're still branching out more and more into fruit trees, gardening, preserving, dehydrating, and those kinds of things. Could you live and survive without electricity or modern conveniences? How did those people do that? These are questions I think that we need to start exploring this coming year. Get out of debt. We talked about that in our inflationary video. A lot of people made comments pushing back on that. But friends, I'm here to tell you, as things get tougher and your budget gets bigger and bigger bites taken out of it, the less debt you have, I think, is going to be a benefit to you. I firmly believe that. Build a community with others around you. I do not advocate the lone wolf approach to preparedness in this channel. I fully believe that you're going to need a community around you when things really get tough. Who do you have living around you possibly that's a neighbor that you can trust, that maybe brings medical treatment experience, gardening skills, military folks, law enforcement, other people that you know will be down and have your back, you know, in a tough situation. All of this is important to identify and have some type of plan with one another, because you're not going to be able to survive a real crucial event. Likely not going to survive that too well as a lone wolf. Gardening skills, growing food, and all of that, I'm here to share with you right now that as I've branched out into that over the last 10 years, I've learned a great deal about how difficult that is. There's a lot to know. And you're not going to just put that together mysteriously at the last minute, you know, in some type of SHTF situation. Now's the time to be supplementing your family's food and resources by doing some good old-fashioned work and growing it yourself. Friends, we waste more food in this country, and we're all guilty of it. People my age, we've grown up in a time of not wanting anything. There's grocery stores and convenience stores every 10 feet. You know, that are open 24 hours, and you can get whatever food you want, whenever you want. I think that's going to change, and I think we're going to need to quit being so wasteful with our resources. It's just like anything else, you know, when the circumstances dictate it, you find yourself adjusting, you know, what you normally would do. By gaining some of these frugal skill sets now, and learning how to stretch out the dollar, your resources, food, not waste anything, how to use up every little last bit. It's a good motto for all of us to think about in 2022. And that's the old use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. Are you living that way now? Do you just find yourself running to the store and replacing stuff and throwing out the old, consumable and just moving on? Well, sure, we've all been doing that because we've lived in a time where we could. We've just talked about identifying people that you can build a community around you that would help get through these tough times. What skills do you bring to that community? If you don't have any, now's the time to start thinking about gaining some of those skills. Can you do basic automotive repairs? Can you keep your car running, when maybe there's no other option? Can you get a little MacGyver, on things when need be? Do you know how to grow food? Are you that person that has some combat first aid skills? Do you have any training in firearms or weapons? Are you a builder? Are you a carpenter? These are all the things that I'm talking about, so assess yourself. Ask yourself these questions. What do I bring to the table? Hey, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button down below. What that does is that helps the YouTube algorithm expose our videos to more people. It helps us build the channel. And as always, remember, get ready so that you and your family can succeed and thrive.